For 68 years, I thought I understood the meaning of family. I spent 40 of those years as a nurse, taking care of people at their most vulnerable. I raised 2 children in a modest home in Newton, Massachusetts. I watched my husband build a successful accounting practice before cancer took him 5 years ago. I thought I'd earned a peaceful retirement, maybe some travel, time with my grandchildren. What I got instead was a lesson in how the people you love most can become the greatest threat to your life. My name is Helen Porter, and last October, my own daughter tried to steal everything I had while convincing the world I was losing my mind. This is how I stopped her. It started with a simple accident, or what I thought was an accident at the time. I was carrying laundry down to the basement on a Tuesday afternoon when my foot caught on the carpet runner. I tumbled down 12 wooden steps and landed hard at the bottom. The pain in my right hip was immediate and excruciating. I managed to drag myself to my phone and call 911. Fractured hip, the ER doctor told me. Surgery required, then extensive physical therapy. I'd be using a walker for months. At 68, a broken hip is serious business. I knew that from my nursing days. I'd seen elderly patients go into the hospital with a hip fracture and never really recover their independence. My daughter Amber was at the hospital within an hour. She burst into my room, all concern and tears. "Mom, oh my God, why didn't you get rid of that old carpet? I told you it was a hazard." I hadn't actually told her about the carpet. I'd mentioned it to my son Brian during one of our brief, strained phone calls. Brian lived in Seattle now. We'd grown distant over the past few years. If I'm honest with myself, I'd always favored Amber. She lived close by, called every week, seemed to need me more. Brian was successful, independent. I'd told myself he didn't need his mother the way Amber did. I see now how wrong I was about everything. "I'm fine, honey. The surgery went well. Doctor says I'll be walking again in a few months." A few months? Amber's boyfriend Kyle had appeared in the doorway. I'd only met him twice before. Amber had been dating him for about 2 years, but something about him always made me uncomfortable. He was younger than her, maybe 38, with that slick kind of charm that felt rehearsed. "Helen, you can't stay alone in that big house while you recover. That's just not safe." "I'll hire a home health aide," I said. "I still have good insurance from the hospital." "No, absolutely not." Amber grabbed my hand. "I won't hear of strangers taking care of you. Kyle and I will move into your guest room. We'll take care of everything." I should have said no. Every instinct I'd honed over 4 decades of nursing screamed at me to refuse. But Amber looked so earnest, so concerned, and I was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being helpless. Scared of becoming one of those statistics I used to see at the hospital. "That's very generous," I heard myself say, just until I'm steady on my feet again. They moved in the next day. Looking back, I realize how quickly they'd made that decision. Almost like they'd been waiting for an opportunity. The first week was actually pleasant. Amber cooked meals, helped me to the bathroom, drove me to physical therapy appointments. Kyle handled the yard work and small repairs around the house. They were attentive, almost obsessively so. But small things started bothering me. I'd find drawers in my study left slightly open. Papers on my desk weren't quite where I'd left them. Kyle asked too many questions about my finances, about the house, about my late husband's estate. When I mentioned it to Amber, she laughed it off. "Mom, Kyle's just trying to help. He's worried about you managing everything alone." The second week, they started talking about the future, about how the house was too big for one person, how the stairs were dangerous, how I should simplify my life. They brought brochures for senior living communities. Just to look at, Mom, just to have options. I've always been stubborn. It comes from growing up in a large Irish family in Southie. You learn to stand your ground or get steamrolled. "I'm not moving anywhere," I told them firmly. "My husband and I bought this house 42 years ago. We raised our children here. I'll leave when they carry me out feet first." I saw something flicker across Kyle's face. Just for a second. Something cold. But then he smiled and said, "Of course, Helen. We just want what's best for you." That night, I couldn't sleep. Pain medication can do that sometimes, leave you drowsy but unable to actually rest. I was lying in my bedroom around 1 a.m., lights off, when I heard voices from the guest room across the hall. They were talking quietly, but my door was slightly ajar, and sound carries in old houses. "She's being stubborn about the house," that was Kyle's voice. "I know. She's always been stubborn. Even when I was growing up." Amber sounded frustrated. "We need to move faster. The longer she's mobile, the harder this gets." I felt my heart begin to race. Something about his tone. Something about those words. "What are you suggesting?" Amber asked. Her voice had dropped to almost a whisper. "I'm saying we need her to sign the power of attorney tomorrow. Then we can start the competency evaluation process. Doctor Morrison said he'd be willing to testify that she's showing signs of dementia if we need him to." My blood went cold. Doctor Morrison was Kyle's friend, some doctor he'd introduced to Amber at a party. I'd never met the man. "Kyle, I don't know. That feels extreme. She's my mother, and she's sitting on a $900,000 house and probably another $500,000 in savings and life insurance. Your mother is 68. She could live another 20 years. Do you want to wait that long? Do you want your inheritance drained by nursing home costs?" Silence. I held my breath, waiting for Amber to defend me, to tell him he was wrong, to shut this conversation down. "What about Brian?" she finally asked. "Brian's in Seattle. When's the last time he even called? He doesn't give a damn about Helen. Besides, once she's in Riverside Manor with documented dementia, it doesn't matter what Brian thinks. No one will believe her if she tries to say anything different." Riverside Manor. I knew that place. It had been investigated 3 times for patient neglect. It was the cheapest facility in the area, the kind of place people went to die. "How long until we can sell the house?" "Once we have POA and she's placed, we can list it within a month. The market's good right now. We'll clear at least $850 after closing costs. Split everything 50-50, just like we agreed." My daughter. My baby girl. The child I'd rocked through nightmares and driven to soccer practice and helped through her divorce. She was planning to warehouse me in a facility known for neglect so she could steal my house and money. I lay in that dark room, and I felt something shift inside me. The fear and hurt hardened into something else. Anger. Purpose. I'm a nurse. I've dealt with difficult people my entire career. I've handled drunk patients, violent patients, patients who tried to manipulate and lie. I've documented abuse and neglect and reported doctors who were endangering lives. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let my own daughter do this to me. I waited until I heard their door close and their light go off. Then I carefully reached for my phone on the nightstand. My hands were shaking, but I managed to open my texts. I hadn't spoken to Brian in almost 3 months. Our last conversation had been awkward, strained. He'd called on my birthday, and I'd spent most of the call talking about Amber and her problems, barely asking about his life. I'd been a terrible mother to him in so many ways. But I needed him now. "Brian, I need you to come home. Don't call, don't text back, just come, and don't tell your sister. Please trust me. Your father would understand. This is an emergency." I stared at the message for a long time before hitting send. Then I carefully deleted it from my phone, just in case. He arrived the next afternoon. I was sitting in my recliner, pretending to doze, when I heard the doorbell. Amber had gone to the grocery store. Kyle was supposedly at work, though I'd begun to doubt he had an actual job. The doorbell rang again, more insistently. I used my walker to shuffle to the door. When I opened it, my son was standing there with a small overnight bag, his face creased with worry. "Mom, what's going on? Your text scared me half to death." I pulled him inside quickly and glanced out at the street. Amber's car was gone. Good. "Brian, sit down. I need to tell you something, and you're going to think I'm crazy. But I swear to God, every word is true." I told him everything. About the conversation I'd overheard, about Kyle's questions about my finances, about the brochures for Riverside Manor, about a doctor I'd never met who was apparently willing to testify I had dementia. Brian's face went through several expressions as I talked. Disbelief first, then confusion, then something harder, angrier. "Have you saved any of the documents they've been showing you? Any emails or texts?" I took pictures of the brochures with my phone. "And there's a document in my study, something about power of attorney. It appeared on my desk yesterday. Kyle said I should just look it over, no pressure." Brian pulled out his laptop. "Mom, I'm going to look into some things, but we need to be smart about this. If what you heard is true, we need evidence, real evidence, and we need to make sure you're protected." That's when I remembered Mrs. Chen, my neighbor for 35 years, a former legal secretary who'd always been the neighborhood watchdog. If anyone had noticed something off about Kyle, it would be her. "Brian, go next door. Talk to Eleanor Chen. Tell her I sent you. Ask her if she's seen anything unusual." He came back 20 minutes later, his face grim. "Mom, Mrs. Chen has been documenting Kyle's movements. She's seen him entering your house 3 times while you were at physical therapy. She watched him load boxes into his car. She said she was about to call me herself, but she didn't have my number. She's been taking photos and videos." By the time Amber returned from shopping, Brian and I had a plan. He'd stay just to visit, sleep on the couch, help me with physical therapy exercises, nothing to make Amber or Kyle suspicious. Meanwhile, Brian would hire a private investigator to look into Kyle's background. What the investigator found made my stomach turn. Kyle Pearson wasn't his real name. He was Kyle Hutchins, and he had a history. 2 years ago in Florida, he dated a woman whose 82-year-old grandmother coincidentally signed over power of attorney to the granddaughter shortly before being placed in a nursing home. The grandmother died 6 months later from sepsis caused by untreated bed sores. The family had tried to sue, but the evidence was circumstantial. Before that, in Arizona, a 76-year-old widow he'd befriended had signed over her house before dying in a facility from complications of dementia. Except the woman's neurologist later testified she'd shown no signs of cognitive decline before her sudden placement. Kyle was a predator who targeted elderly people through their family members. And my daughter had either been manipulated into helping him, or worse, was a willing accomplice. The investigator also found something else. Kyle had already forged my signature on several documents, credit cards in my name with $80,000 in debt, a reverse mortgage application that had been started but not completed, and most damning, a draft of a new will leaving everything to Amber, dated and signed in my name, but I'd never seen it before in my life. "We need to call the police now," Brian said, spreading the evidence across my dining room table. "Not yet." I looked at the calendar. It was Friday. Amber mentioned they're planning a farewell dinner tomorrow night. She's invited some neighbors to say goodbye before I supposedly move to assisted living. I want them all to see who she really is. "Mom, that's dangerous. What if Kyle panics? Then you and the police will be here to stop him." I met my son's eyes. "Brian, I spent 40 years taking care of people. I've seen elder abuse before. I've reported it, testified about it, fought against it. I'm not going to slink away like a victim. I'm going to face my daughter and look her in the eye while she explains to everyone why she tried to do this to me." The next evening, Amber and Kyle were in the kitchen preparing dinner. I was in my recliner in the living room, Brian ostensibly helping me with exercises. In reality, we were testing the hidden cameras we'd installed that morning with the help of Mrs. Chen's tech-savvy grandson. The doorbell rang. Our lawyer, Michael Chen, Eleanor's son. "Right on time," Amber answered the door. "Mrs. Porter, I'm Michael Chen, Eleanor's son. I'm an attorney. I need to speak with you about some urgent matters regarding your mother's estate." "This isn't a good time," I heard Amber say. "We're having a dinner party. I'm afraid it can't wait. It concerns documents that have been filed under your mother's name. Fraudulent documents." I stood up, steadier on my feet than I'd let anyone know. Brian helped me into the kitchen doorway. Kyle was at the stove, his back to us. Amber's face had gone pale. "What's going on?" Kyle turned, and I saw him take in the lawyer, then Brian, then me standing without my walker. "Michael, thank you for coming." I kept my voice level. "Amber, Kyle, I think we need to have a family discussion before dinner." "Mom, you should sit down. You're going to hurt yourself." "I'm fine. In fact, my orthopedic surgeon says I'm healing remarkably well. No signs of confusion or memory problems. Perfectly competent," he said. "Which is good, since apparently there's been some confusion about my legal affairs." The doorbell rang again. Brian opened it to reveal 2 police detectives and Mrs. Chen, holding a laptop. "What the hell is this?" Kyle's voice had lost its smooth charm. "This," Michael Chen opened his briefcase and pulled out documents, "is evidence of fraud, forgery, and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. Credit cards opened in Mrs. Porter's name. A forged will. A fake power of attorney document. And that's just the beginning. Mrs. Chen opened her laptop. I have videos of you, Kyle, entering Helen's house on 3 separate occasions while she was away. I have footage of you loading boxes of her belongings into your vehicle. I have audio of a conversation between you and Amber discussing the timeline for having Helen declared incompetent and placed in Riverside Manor. I watched my daughter's face. She was looking at Kyle, who had gone very still. Amber, I said quietly, is this who you've become? Is this what you wanted? To have your mother locked away so you could steal from me? Mom, you don't understand. Kyle said we were just protecting your assets, he said. He said whatever he needed to say to manipulate you. Brian pulled out another folder. Kyle Hutchins has done this before. Twice. In Florida and Arizona. Both times, elderly people ended up dead in nursing homes while he and his accomplice made off with their money. One of those women died from neglect, Amber. Untreated bed sores that turned septic. Is that what you wanted for Mom? Amber's face crumpled. No, I didn't know. Kyle said we were just going to make sure she was taken care of. He said the house was too much for her. I didn't. You knew enough. I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. You heard me say I wanted to stay in my home. You saw me walking, talking, making my own decisions. And you decided your inheritance was more important than my life. Kyle made a sudden move toward the back door. One of the detectives blocked him immediately. Mr. Hutchins, or should I say, Pearson, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of an elderly person. You have the right to remain silent. As they read him his rights, I turned to Amber. She was crying now, mascara running down her face. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was in debt, and Kyle said he knew how to help, and You were willing to sacrifice me to solve your problems. I felt tears in my own eyes now, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. I gave you everything. I raised you. I supported you through your divorce. I was there for every crisis, every problem. And when I needed you, you saw me as a bank account to drain. Mrs. Porter, one of the detectives said gently, we need to take your statement. Are you willing to press charges against both of them? I looked at my daughter. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to protect her one more time. But I thought about those other victims. About the 82-year-old grandmother who died of sepsis. About the widow in Arizona. Yes, I said. Both of them. Amber started sobbing harder. Mom, please, I'm your daughter. Don't do this to me. I'm doing this because I'm your mother. Because you need to face consequences for what you tried to do. And because I'm not going to let you do this to anyone else. The aftermath was messy. Amber pleaded guilty to attempted fraud and got 3 years in prison with possibility of parole after 18 months. Kyle got 15 years for multiple counts of elder abuse, fraud, and exploitation. The families of his previous victims filed civil suits, and every asset he had was seized. Brian moved back to Boston. He took a job at a tech company in Cambridge and moved into my guest room while house hunting. We spent evenings cooking together, really talking for the first time in years. I'm sorry, I told him one night about a month after Amber's sentencing. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. I'm sorry I always made excuses for your sister. You loved her. That's what mothers do. But I should have loved you both equally. I should have seen you, really seen you. You were the one who showed up when I needed help. You're the one who believed me. Well, he smiled, you raised me to value truth and evidence. Nurses training. My hip healed. 6 months after the surgery, I was walking without a walker, just a cane for longer distances. I went back to volunteering at the hospital, this time in the Elder Advocacy Program. I also started something new. Using the settlement money from the civil suit against Kyle, I founded a nonprofit called the Elder Safety Network. We teach seniors about financial fraud, about warning signs of exploitation, about how to protect themselves. We help families identify predators like Kyle. And we work with law enforcement to prosecute elder abuse cases. Last week, I gave a presentation at the Newton Senior Center. 40 people showed up. I told them my story, the whole thing, including the part about my own daughter. Your age doesn't make you weak, I told them. Your wisdom makes you strong. You've lived long enough to develop instincts about people. Trust those instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything. Keep your own records. Don't let anyone, not even your children, convince you that you're too confused or too old to manage your own life. An elderly man in the back row raised his hand. What about forgiveness? Did you forgive your daughter? I thought about that for a moment. I think forgiveness is complicated. I've forgiven Amber for being weak, for being manipulated, but I haven't forgotten what she was willing to do, and I won't pretend it didn't happen. Maybe someday, after she's served her time and done the work to understand what she did, we can rebuild something, but it will never be what it was, and that's okay. Sometimes love means holding people accountable, not letting them off the hook. Every Sunday, Brian and I have dinner together. Sometimes Mrs. Chen joins us, or Michael and his family. We're building a new kind of family, one based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation or expectation. I still think about Amber. I won't lie and say I don't. She writes letters from prison. I read them, but I haven't responded yet. Maybe someday, but right now, I'm focused on my own healing and on making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. Last month, I testified before the state legislature about strengthening elder protection laws. I told them about Kyle's pattern, about how predators move from state to state, exploiting loopholes. I told them about the warning signs I missed and the ones I didn't. These criminals count on silence, I said. They count on victims being too embarrassed to admit they were fooled. They count on families being too uncomfortable to talk about death and inheritance. They count on a system that assumes elderly people are automatically confused or incompetent. We need to change all of that. The bill passed. It's called Helen's Law, which still feels surreal to me. It requires mandatory reporting of suspected elder financial exploitation, creates stronger penalties for predators like Kyle, and establishes better protections for seniors signing over power of attorney. I'm 69 now. I wake up every morning in my own bed, in my own house, the one my husband and I bought 43 years ago. I make my own coffee in my own kitchen. I manage my own finances, make my own decisions, live my own life. And every morning, I'm grateful. Grateful that I trusted my instincts. Grateful that Brian came when I called. Grateful that I had the strength to fight back. Grateful that I'm still here, still independent, still able to help others avoid the trap I almost fell into. My advice to anyone reading this, whether you're 30 or 90, pay attention to the quiet signs. The too helpful family member who asks too many questions about your finances. The sudden push to simplify or plan for the future. The documents that appear on your desk with pressure to sign quickly. The isolation from other family members or friends. Real love doesn't rush you into decisions. Real love doesn't make you feel incompetent or confused. Real love doesn't see your death or decline as a financial opportunity. And if you're a family member caring for an elderly parent, examine your own motivations. Are you there because you genuinely care, or because you're counting on an inheritance? Because I promise you, if you're the latter, your parent probably knows. And they're lying in bed at night, just like I did, wondering when you'll make your move. I survived because I refused to be a victim. I survived because I documented everything, because I reached out for help, because I trusted myself more than I trusted my daughter's performance of concern. You can survive too. You can fight back. Your age is not a weakness. Your experience is not a liability. You are not too old to demand respect, to protect yourself, to say no, and if someone tries to tell you otherwise, well, that's probably the clearest warning sign of all. I'm Helen Porter. I'm 69 years old. I'm a retired nurse, an elder advocate, and a survivor. I'm living in my own home, on my own terms, making my own decisions every single day. And I'm not going anywhere until I'm damn well ready.